Well, as always, I hope your day has gone well. I hope that you are doing well. I hope your family's doing well. If you're ill, if you're suffering in any way, we definitely want to let you know that we are praying for you and we wish you the best. And if we can do anything for you, we just ask that you would ask us. I don't think we have any announcements to discuss tonight, so we'll get ready for our study tonight. I hope you enjoyed our introduction to the book of Job, and tonight we are going to be in the book of Job. We are going to start in chapter 1, and like I said, we're not going to be able to go verse by verse in the book of Job. We'll be in Job way too long, so we're going to go topic by topic. That's the way that we're going to have to do it. If you haven't read Job chapter 1 today, please pause the video and go read chapter 1. We're not going to get far in chapter 1 tonight, but we are going to start chapter 1. Before we do that, maybe it'd be helpful to review a little bit about what we talked about last week. We talked about the target audience of Job, how the book was written to an audience that was very literate and very intellectual, a very select group of people. That ought to caution us when we read the book. Caution us to slow down, caution us to dig deep, caution us to question the things we're reading and to think about the things that we're reading. We talked about the possible date for the book of Job, and as you remember, we concluded with, it's debatable. We talked about some other things, and then we gave a good overview of the book of Job that came from John Hartley's commentary on Job. You remember that? Job chapters 1 and 2, that's the prologue, and then you have Job's curse lament in chapter 3, and in chapters 4 through 27 you have the sections of dialogue, and then chapter 28's the hymn to wisdom, 29 through 31 is Job's avowal of innocence, and then you have 32 through 37 is the speeches of Elihu. Then you have the God speeches in the epilogue. That was a good outline of the book of Job. That gets us caught up to, I think, where we can start tonight. Job chapter 1 in verse 1 is where we will begin. Job chapter 1 verse 1. Let me get my Bible there. Here's how it begins. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was a blameless and upright man, one who feared God and turned away from evil. Well, we learn a lot in those verses. We learn about where Job was from, and we learn a lot about Job himself. In chapter 1, verse 1, there was a man in the land of Uz. Now, maybe we stop in that verse and we ask the rational question, where was Uz? Well, as my professor at Freed Hardeman, Dr. Justin Rogers, always said in our class on Job, nobody knows where Uz was. Nobody knows. Now, maybe that doesn't surprise you because we talked a lot about some things in the book of Job last week. You know, the date. What's the answer to when the book was written? It's debatable. What's the audience, the target audience of Job? There's a good idea, but it's debatable. What about the main point of the book of Job? What's the main point? It's debatable. Where was Uz? It's debatable. Traditionally, most people have concluded, or most interpreters have concluded, that the land of Uz is in some way closely related to the land of Edom. And here's why some people have said that. Lamentations is where we'll go for a second. Lamentations chapter 4, verse 21. Here's what you read. Rejoice and be glad, O daughter of Edom, you who dwell in the land of Uz. But to you also the cup shall pass. You shall become drunk and strip yourself bare. Now let's read that one more time. At least the first part. Rejoice and be glad, O daughter of Edom, you who dwell in the land of Uz. Where was Uz? Well, like we said, traditionally, most interpreters have concluded, because of Lamentations 4:1 and some other verses, that the land of Uz was in some way closely related to the land of Edom. Where exactly in Edom? It's debatable. Nobody knows. There's good reason, though, for suggesting that the land of Uz is in some way was in some way related to the land of Edom. If it is related to the land of Edom, it would be east of Israel, but it would still be close in proximity to Israel. So where is it? Nobody knows. It probably most likely has something to do with the land of Edom. So we go back. Job chapter 1, verse 1. There was a man in the land of Uz. Nobody knows. Now, we could stop and we could say this. Some people believe that the book of Job is a parable. Okay? It's a made-up story that is used to teach us something, teach us a truth. Other people have concluded that, no, the book of Job is not a parable, but it actually reflects an actual historical reality. So there are two views. Pretty much, the book of Job is a parable, or the book of Job depicts actual historical reality. That is, Job was an actual man that lived, and he was from Uz, and the things that we read actually happened to a real man. The people that argue that Job is a parable, one of their arguments has to do with Job 1:1. There was once a man in the land of Uz. Because nobody knows where Uz was, they say this book opens like a fairy tale. You know some fairy tales. In a land far, far away. That's what they say about Job. Because nobody knows where the land of Uz was. Nobody really knows anything about it. We won't say any more about that. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was blameless and upright, one who feared God and turned away from evil. Wow. We learn a lot about Job. What do we know about Job? Well, maybe we pause before we talk about what the text says, and we just ask the question, who was Job? Was he a made-up character? Was he a real man who lived? What do we know about him? Well, we know that the Septuagint identifies Job with Jobab, the Edomite king. We can read about him in Genesis chapter 37, or 36 rather. Genesis chapter 36, verse 33. Here's what that says. I'm sorry, 34. Genesis 36, 34. Jobab died. Okay, well, what about Jobab? Well, let's go back up to verse 33. Jobab, the son of Zerah of Bozrah, reigned in his place. So there's this man in Genesis chapter 36 whose name is Jobab, and he was an Edomite king. And some people have said, or at least the Septuagint makes note of the fact that Job is the Jobab that is mentioned in Genesis chapter 36. Now, who was Job? Well, you might could guess the answer. Nobody really knows. So perhaps it's best to just go with what we know from the text. He is this man from the land of Uz, and he was a blameless man. He was an upright man. He was a man who feared God, and he was a man who shunned evil. Now, those characteristics are powerful. They're really, really powerful. Job is described as blameless. Now, when this word blameless is used in the Old Testament, it's usually used in the context of sacrifices. You know, animals that are offered. They're supposed to be without spot and without blemish. They're supposed to be blameless. But when the word refers to humans, when it's used to refer to humanity, it means a person of integrity. So what do we know about Job? Well, for one, we know that Job was a person of integrity. He walked closely with God, and he delighted in God's law. You know, in Psalm 119, verse 1, here's what we read. Psalm 119, verse 1. Blessed are those whose way is blameless, who walk in the law of the Lord. That could be said of Job. Job was a blameless man. He was a man of personal integrity. Well, we go back and we not only learn that Job was a blameless man, but we learn that Job was an upright man. This word deals with how Job related to other people. He was upright. He was a man that was compassionate to other people. He didn't walk all over other people. Now, we eventually learned that Job was a very, very rich man, in fact. But he didn't misuse his wealth. There were people that were poor in Job's time, obviously, but Job didn't walk all over them because he was rich. Job was compassionate to the poor. He had mercy upon the poor. He helped the poor. He's a man that was upright. You see in Psalm 37:7. Psalm 37:37. I'm sorry, I didn't give you the right verse. Psalm 37:7. Here's what it says. Mark the blameless and behold the upright, for there is a future for the man of peace. This man of shalom, Job, is upright. He's compassionate. Well, we keep reading and we learn a little more about Job. Job was blameless, he was upright, but he was a man who feared God. Now this phrase, feared God, is a common phrase in the Old Testament. What does it tell us about Job? Job was a man who loved God devoutly. And because he loved God devoutly, he was obedient. His love demanded his obedience. In other words, Job stayed away from evil because he loved God, which leads us to the other description that we find in chapter 1, verse 1. He was a blameless man, an upright man. He was a man who feared God, but he was also a man that turned away from evil. Morally, Job was a great man, morally. Who was Job? Well, historically, we don't know who Job was. We don't know who he identifies with. Which Job he was. From the text, we learn that Job is a man that every person hopefully strives to be like. Because personally, Job was blameless. Socially, Job was upright. Religiously, Job was one who feared God. And morally, he was one who shunned evil. Those were all characteristics that we want. Now, think of all your great heroes in the Old Testament. Name some. Abraham, yeah, hero in the Old Testament. Moses, what about great man in the Old Testament? What about David? None of those guys ever receive the fourfold affirmation that Job receives in chapter 1, verse 1. That's remarkable. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was blameless and upright, one who feared God and turned away from evil. There were born to him 7 sons and 3 daughters. He possessed 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 female donkeys, and very many servants, so that this man was the greatest of all the people in the East. Well, after Job's great description, the text invites us to look at how blessed Job is. It invites us to notice Job's blessedness, okay? In doing so, we notice how his family is blessed, and we noticed how his livestock is blessed, and how his household is blessed, and how his social status is blessed as it relates to his family. He has 7 sons and 3 daughters. Okay? Nobody in that time would be complaining about that. His livestock. What? 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 female donkeys. That's wild. His household. He has many servants. His social status. He's great. He's the greatest of all the people in the East. So in our study tonight, what do we need to know? Well, we learn about Job. We learn that Job was a great man. He was a really great man. He was complete in his conduct, but he was also complete in the blessings that he received from God. That's all that we have to talk about tonight. The time is sneaking up on us, so I can't wait to see everybody Sunday. I hope you have a great rest of the week. God bless.